Hey everybody, in this video we're going to be talking about the top 10 worst things about going to art school.
Number 10.
Coming in at number 10 is the idea that concept can be better than ability. Oftentimes students come into art school and they think they're going to learn a lot of technique, and a lot of what art schools do today is actually drive home ideas related to concept. And this can be really frustrating when somebody comes in and they want to, learn how to use linseed oil, and instead they're talking about Deleuze.
Number 9.
So speaking of Deleuze, coming in at number 9, we have the idea that there's really difficult readings. And oftentimes, a lot of different areas of study, they don't stress reading these really difficult philosophical texts. For instance, I've got some Gilles Deleuze in front of me. He's a very famous French philosopher that you're going to have to read about if you go to art school. And here's an excerpt from one of his writings, A Thousand Plateaus. It is a pre-personal intensity corresponding to the passage from one experimental state of the body to another and implying an augmentation or diminution in that body's capacity to act. L'affection in such a state is considered as an encounter between the affected body and a second affecting body. Okay, so think about that for a little bit. You're going to be reading a lot of that sort of stuff.
Number 8.
Coming in at number 8, we have the idea that oftentimes schools are filled with old people and they actually aren't really in touch with the contemporary art world and what's happening right now. A lot of people that go to art school, that group of people that they graduate with is kind of their cohort for the rest of their lives. So oftentimes they keep on teaching. They can be, quite old, like me. I'm getting up there, but they can get quite old, and their ideas can kind of stagnate. So sometimes you go to art school, and they're actually critiquing you on things that aren't really relevant anymore.
Number 7.
Coming in at number 7, we have people being mean in critiques. So oftentimes in any class, you'll have to give presentations to the class, but you'll have the entire class come in and look at your work, or you'll put your work on the wall and then everybody has to talk about it. In most situations, it would not be a good idea to just be kind of a jerk in a class. Like if you were taking a biology class and somebody is talking about their research involving earthworms, you wouldn't get angry at them and start talking about why they voted for Donald Trump. That happens in art school. People can be kind of mean about stuff that doesn't really have anything to do with the art that's in front of them. They just want to jab at somebody a little bit and poke them and kind of piss them off because they don't like them.
Number 6.
Coming in at number 6, we have the idea that time does not always equal quality. So sometimes you can have somebody who spends hours and hours and hours on a painting, 30, 40 hours, let's say they worked every single day, 6-7 hours a day, and they come in and they put it on the wall, and then the professor says, "That seems overworked." It can be a bad thing to work too much in art school, and people will call you out for it. And sometimes you can work 40 hours on a painting and it's a bad painting, and other times you can work 2 hours on a painting and it turns out pretty good. So there isn't this exact definition of how hard I work equals success. It's oftentimes more arbitrary than that, and you have to kind of, tweak your brain a little bit to get around that concept.
Number 5.
Coming in at number 5, we have the idea of grading. Now, where I went to school at the SAIC, School of the Art Institute of Chicago, we didn't have grades. We just got a CR on a transcript, and that stood for, I think, just credit. Everything's pass or fail. But a lot of schools, and I'm asked to grade students, and so I grade students based upon them consistently doing work and documenting it every day in class. So that means if somebody comes in and they can already draw and paint really good, they can fail the class if they don't document what they do every single day and show that they're actually doing the assignments. Now, oftentimes grading, I think, can be really arbitrary. I've heard from other professors as well, where it's like, why, what's a B? you know? Like, you're just kind of making up in your head, like, how hard do I think that person worked? You know, and you can kind of tell, of course. You can kind of tell and you can put a grade on that. But there can be other arbitrary things where people are like, I just don't like work about cows. You know, I've had enough of cow work. And no matter how hard you worked on that cow painting, you still get a B just because the person doesn't like cows.
Number 4.
Coming in at number 4, the real world outside of art school. This usually happens to people in their 3rd or 4th year in undergrad and in their final year in master's programs. But they start freaking out, and you have to actively start applying for jobs during your hardest year of art school. So your 4th year in undergrad, you have to be creating a show of all your work, you have to be writing a paper of some sort. You're already freaked out, but you're going to have to be applying for jobs at that exact same time as well, and you have no idea what's going to happen, and then you're going to have that first student loan payment come in the summer, right after you finish. So not knowing what's happening after art school is a tough one, and I think it just takes a lot of preparation and just really getting in touch with what your skill set is and what you can bring to other people, and trying to remain optimistic about that.
Number 3.
Coming in at number 3, we have the idea that sometimes people can just keep liking everything. And in art school, this can become a problem because it's like the more you learn about any work of art, the more you kind of start liking it. For instance, I can't stand the painter Bouguereau. He's the Baroque painter. He paints these women on swings with fluffy clouds in the background and stuff like that. And I couldn't stand him. And then I started learning more about him, and I started, learning about his painting techniques and all this sort of stuff. And then I ended up kind of liking him. And then I'm like, oh, I kind of like Bouguereau. And it's a difficult thing, but you just keep liking everything. And part of your trajectory at an art school should be to find out your own style, find out your own vision. Don't just like every single thing that you see.
Number 2.
Coming in at number 2, this is a pet peeve of mine. You're in art school to learn something, but when you get out of art school, you should have a portfolio of work. That should be your number 1 goal. You need a body of work. You should get out of art school, not with just stuff in your head, but you should have a pile of paintings, a room full of sculptures, whatever. You need a body of work, because if you want to continue making art and start showing places, you're going to have to show a gallerist some, way more works. They're going to want to see 50 to 100 pieces, okay? Because, you get 12 pieces in one show. And then what if you sell all those 12 pieces? Oh, now you got 0. You got to work another year? No. You got to have, 12 more paintings you can sell. So it's important to get into the mindset. You've got to be going to art school to be creating a portfolio of work, a body of work, okay? And oftentimes I think many schools stress the idea that you're supposed to be driven conceptually and, doing all these readings and doing all these writings, which are helpful. I'll do different videos on those. I'm not against these sort of things. But oftentimes that outweighs just getting a pile of work, which is the most important thing moving forward as an artist.
Number 1.
Coming in at number 1, art school can be intensely personal. Almost to the point where if you were in other departments in a school, if you're at, a state university or something like that, you would never be asked a question about whether you're possibly psychologically unstable, or a time that your grandma scolded you when you were 6 years old, or what's going on with the relationship with your father. These questions happen at art school all the time, and they can get extremely personal. I'd say every semester, literally every single semester, somebody cries. And this can be for a variety of reasons, but mainly I'd say it's because art school can be a place that's intensely personal, and you're very vulnerable because you're trying to open up and share your voice with the world, and oftentimes that means talking about some very uncomfortable things or some really, really personal things. So, thanks for watching. If you like this sort of thing, head over to paintingcourse.com. Links down in the description, and don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me out a lot. And if you like these vids, head on over to my channel and watch more of them. Thanks a lot.